Victoria Hayes stood at the entrance of the private ballroom in Manhattan, staring at the empty display case where her mother's diamond necklace had been kept only minutes earlier. The room was filled with executives, wealthy investors and security personnel, yet nobody seemed willing to meet her eyes. "That necklace does not simply disappear," Victoria said coldly. "Lock every exit." Her head of security immediately nodded and instructed his team to check everyone who had been near the display. Victoria rarely showed emotion at company events, but this necklace was different. It had belonged to her mother, Eleanor Hayes, one of the most important people in Victoria's childhood. As security moved through the ballroom, Daniel Reed stood near the service entrance. He was a maintenance supervisor who had worked at the company for several years, unlike the executives around him. Daniel wore a simple dark uniform and carried an old canvas bag. He was a single father, and everyone who knew him understood that he worked long hours to provide for his young daughter. A security guard approached him. "Sir, we need to inspect your bag." Daniel looked at the guard, then calmly placed the bag on a nearby table. "Go ahead." Victoria noticed the interaction from across the room. "Search it," she ordered. Daniel turned toward her. "I have nothing to hide," he said. The guard opened the bag. Inside was a small lunch container, a bottle of water, a few tools, and a folded drawing covered with colorful stars. Then the guard found an old velvet pouch. Victoria immediately stepped closer. "What is that?" Daniel frowned. "I honestly don't know. It belongs to my daughter. She found it among some old things at home." The guard carefully opened the pouch. A gold necklace slipped into his hand. The room became silent. Victoria's face suddenly lost its color. No, she walked toward the table. The necklace was delicate, with a small sapphire pendant surrounded by tiny diamonds. Victoria knew every detail of it. She had seen it in childhood photographs. It had belonged to her mother. "Where did you get that?" Victoria asked, her voice trembling. Daniel looked genuinely confused. "My late wife kept it in an old box. I never knew what it was." Victoria reached for the necklace but stopped before touching it. On the back of the pendant was a tiny engraving, E.H., her mother's initials. Victoria stared at the letters, unable to breathe normally. 20 years earlier, her mother had disappeared from her life under mysterious circumstances. Victoria had spent years believing the necklace had been lost forever. Now it was sitting inside the bag of a single father who claimed he had never even known its history. "Daniel," Victoria whispered, "you need to tell me everything you know about your wife." Daniel looked at the necklace again, and for the first time, his expression suggested that he might finally understand why his wife had guarded that old box for so many years. Daniel slowly pulled a chair toward the table and sat down, still staring at the necklace in Victoria's trembling hands. The entire ballroom had become unusually quiet. Even the security guard stood frozen, waiting for their CEO to explain what had just happened. "My wife's name was Sarah," Daniel said softly. "She passed away 3 years ago. After she died, I found several boxes she had kept locked away. I never opened most of them because I thought they were personal." Victoria looked at him. "And this necklace was inside one of those boxes." Daniel nodded. "My daughter found it recently, while looking through some old photographs. She thought it was pretty and wanted to wear it. I told her it probably belonged to someone important. So I kept it in my bag until I could figure out where it came from." Victoria turned the necklace over again. The initials E.H. were still visible. "Eleanor Hayes," she whispered. Daniel's expression changed. "That was your mother." Victoria nodded slowly. "My mother disappeared 20 years ago." Daniel stared at her. "My wife knew your family." Victoria immediately looked up. Daniel reached into his bag and pulled out an old photograph. The edges were worn and the image had faded with time. He placed it on the table. Victoria picked it up. Her hands began shaking. The photograph showed a younger Sarah standing beside an elegant woman. Victoria recognized the woman instantly. It was her mother. "When was this taken?" Victoria asked. Daniel swallowed. "About 20 years ago." Victoria looked at the photograph again. "Why was your wife with my mother?" "Sarah worked as a nurse," Daniel explained. "She told me your mother had been sick and needed someone she trusted. They became close." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "My mother never told me about her. She probably wanted to," Daniel said. "But Sarah told me there was something complicated happening in your family." Victoria looked toward the necklace. "What kind of complication?" Daniel hesitated before answering. "Sarah believed your mother was searching for someone." Daniel pulled another folded paper from the bag. She wrote down a name, Victoria unfolded it. Her heart stopped. The name was Emily Hayes, her older sister. Victoria had been told for 20 years that she was an only child. Her mother had never mentioned another daughter, Daniel continued. Sarah discovered that your mother had been trying to find Emily after she disappeared as a teenager. She believed someone in the family had hidden the truth. Victoria covered her mouth. The necklace suddenly made sense. Her mother had given it to Sarah because she trusted her, and Sarah had protected the secret until her death. Victoria looked at Daniel with tears in her eyes. I accused you of stealing this. Daniel shook his head gently. You were protecting something precious. Victoria looked down at the photograph. For the first time in 20 years, she finally had a clue about her mother's disappearance, and the sister she never knew she had. She immediately ordered security to stop the search. Then she turned toward Daniel. I'm sorry, Daniel nodded, but now... Victoria whispered, I need your help finding the truth. Daniel looked at the photograph. I think my wife wanted you to find it.